You do it every week. Pull into the station, pop the fuel door, walk to the pump, grab the nozzle, and wrapped around that nozzle is a thick black rubber sleeve, floppy, industrial looking, a little grimy no matter how new the station is. You have never thought about it. You assume it protects the car from scratches, or protects the nozzle from impact. Or maybe it is just the way pumps are built and there is no particular reason at all. Every single one of those assumptions is wrong. That rubber sleeve is an emissions control device. A piece of environmental engineering so effective and so invisible that it has been quietly removing millions of pounds of toxic pollution from the air above American gas stations for over 40 years, without a single person who uses it every week knowing what it actually does. To understand the sleeve, you first have to understand what gasoline does when it meets open air. Gasoline is not just a liquid. It is a volatile mixture of hydrocarbons, and the moment it is exposed to the atmosphere, it begins releasing vapors. You can smell this at any gas station. That sharp chemical smell when you remove the fuel cap. That faint haze you sometimes see rising from the fill point on a hot day. That is gasoline evaporating into the air around you in real time. Those vapors are not just unpleasant. They are a category of pollutant called volatile organic compounds, or VOCs. And when VOCs mix with nitrogen oxides in sunlight, they trigger a chemical reaction that produces ground-level ozone. Not the protective ozone layer high in the atmosphere. A different thing entirely. A lung irritant that sits at breathing height in the air of any city where enough of it accumulates. Every time a car pulls into a gas station and a fuel tank is filled, the displaced air inside that tank has to go somewhere. It comes out through the fill neck as the gasoline goes in. That air is saturated with gasoline vapor, and in the era before any controls existed, it went directly into the atmosphere above the pump, station by station, fill by fill, millions of times a day across the country. In a small town in open country, this barely registers. In a dense city with 10,000 cars filling up daily, the accumulation is something else entirely. Los Angeles found out what that something else was before anywhere else in America. By the late 1940s, Los Angeles had a problem nobody had a name for yet. On certain days, a brown haze settled over the basin and refused to lift. Eyes burned, throats tightened, children were kept indoors. Elderly residents with lung conditions were advised not to go outside. Schools closed on the worst days. The city initially blamed the smell on a nearby synthetic rubber plant and forced it to shut down. The haze did not improve. Officials were confused. The plant was gone, but the air was the same. It took years of research to identify what was actually happening. Los Angeles sat in a geographic bowl. Mountains on 3 sides, ocean on 1. Wind patterns that pushed air in but rarely pushed it out. The city was trapping its own exhaust. And the primary driver of that exhaust was not factories, it was cars. Millions of them, and the gas stations feeding those cars. California started regulating vehicle emissions before the federal government moved. The California Air Resources Board was created in 1967. It became the most aggressive air quality regulator in the world, not because California was idealistic, but because California had already lived through what happens when you wait. The federal government followed with the Clean Air Act of 1970, then its amendments in 1977 and 1990. Each round of legislation tightened the requirements on emissions sources, and gas stations became a specific target. The engineering problem was this. Every time a tank is filled, gasoline vapor escapes. You cannot stop the vapor from forming. You cannot stop the tank from needing to be vented. But you can capture the vapor before it reaches the atmosphere. The solution engineers developed was called Stage 2 vapor recovery. And the hardware they built to deliver it was the rubber sleeve on the nozzle. The sleeve is not solid rubber. It is a boot fitted around a second inner tube running alongside the fuel delivery tube. When the nozzle is inserted into the fill neck and the sleeve seals around the opening, the pump creates a closed system. Fuel goes in through the inner tube. Displaced vapor from the tank travels back out through the recovery tube. The vapor goes into a canister in the pump rather than into the air above your car. The sleeve is the seal that makes this possible. Without a seal, the vapor recovery tube has nothing to capture. The vapors escape around the edges, and the system fails. The floppy, industrial-looking rubber boot is the critical component. Not the decoration, not the protection, the mechanism itself. California mandated Stage 2 vapor recovery at gas stations beginning in the early 1970s. Federal requirements followed for high-pollution areas. By the 1990s, the black rubber sleeve was standard equipment at fuel pumps across most of the country. The reduction in emissions was not trivial. Studies measuring air quality around gas stations before and after Stage 2 installation found reductions in hydrocarbon emissions at the pump of between 80 and 95%. Not marginal improvement. Near elimination of one specific pollution source that had been operating unchecked for decades. In Los Angeles specifically, the cumulative effect of vehicle emission controls combined with vapor recovery at fuel stations was measurable in the air quality data within years. The brown haze that had defined the city's skyline for a generation began to thin. Not disappear, but thin. The worst smog days that had once closed schools became rarer. Then rare. Then exceptional. The rubber sleeve on your gas pump nozzle was part of that. A small part of a large system, but a part. There is a particular category of engineering that never gets acknowledged because it works too well to notice. Nobody writes about the vapor recovery nozzle. No documentary has been made about Stage 2 emissions control at gas stations. The engineers who designed the sleeve and the regulators who fought to mandate it spent careers on a problem that the public would never see solved because the solution would make the problem invisible. That is what happened. The problem became invisible. And because it became invisible, people forgot there was ever a problem at all. You grab that nozzle every week. The sleeve seals around your fill neck. The vapor that would have gone into the air above you goes instead into a canister inside the pump. You smell almost nothing. You think nothing of it. You drive away. Somewhere in Los Angeles, a child is breathing air that is measurably cleaner than the air their grandparents breathed on an ordinary Tuesday in 1965. The rubber sleeve did not do that alone, but it did its part. Every fill, every station, every week, for 40 years. Without anyone noticing at all,